check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
Hey everyone, I want to let you know about a new sponsor of the podcast, being Johnson Quail, and for nearly 30 years they produce premium Coturnix quail for falconers across the U.S. and Alaska. They're a small family-owned business trusted by the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Zoo, and the Cornell Raptor Program. I've now used these quail to feed my own birds, and they're pretty nice size, and they're aged around 35 to 37 days and around 8 ounces per bird. So they're nice, good quality birds, and they are fed with custom formulated feed and frozen with dry ice and packed well for shipment. So whether you need 60 birds or 6,000, they've got you covered. If you want to put in an order, call Kevin at 507-213-9005 or go to johnsonquail.com. And if you use the promo code Chronicles, you get 10% off your first order. Johnson Quail, trusted since 1995.
One of my favorite hunts was I was in Arizona with a friend of mine, and I had my male goshawk, and we happened to hit a patch of bunnies that there were a lot of bunnies in the patch. And so we got out there at first light, and one bunny after the other flushed, and my bird just scooped every single one. And I caught 5 bunnies in 10 minutes before the sun came up. And these weren't like hype bunnies. These weren't like, no, these birds were, these bunnies were like in the wild field, in the bushes, and they actually ran pretty far.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And as I will probably end up announcing officially soon on social media, this will be my second to last episode, at least for the foreseeable future, possibly forever. Just kind of depends on what ends up going on in the future. But as of right now, as I announced a while back, I just simply can't afford to continue this completely out of my own pocket right now when I have so many other things that I have to catch up on financially and personally and otherwise. But I was very happy to get this episode recorded, though, with Nicole Perretta before I officially hang things up for the foreseeable future. In this episode, we talk about all kinds of great stuff, hawking in her area of California, how she's had to adapt things to that, and of course all kinds of accipiter stuff, particularly some of the things that she's noticed in her vast experience with Cooper's hawks, and of course goshawk stuff as well. So for you accipiter fanatics out there, I'm sure you'll get at least something out of this episode, but there's also all kinds of other great things discussed in this episode as well. I was very happy to have Nicole on before I officially hung things up here, and I really hope that you get something out of this episode and enjoy the last couple that I put out for you here, especially next week. The one that I publish next week for my last episode is one that you will definitely not want to miss. It's a great note to go out on, and I'm really stoked that I was able to get that one done too. So anyway, we're going to jump right into this episode with Nicole, and here we go. How far do you have to go then to take your kid to school?
Like, what's?
This was just this week because he didn't have his bus pass yet. So he's also on the autism spectrum. Even though he's 19, he doesn't drive. He may drive someday, but I'm not sure. But he just started class at junior college this week, so he's getting his pass today. So I don't have to drive him. Though that being said, I raised 2 sons, and I drove kids to school for 20 years.
Fair enough. I didn't know how old your kids were. I didn't know if this was kind of like a moving situation or like a new area acclimation situation.
No, just the first week of classes at junior college. So he just asked for a ride until he got his bus pass. So we're all good. So I'm done with that. So it was like, a brief interruption in my schedule.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. No, anytime. I know, like, I was kind of faced with that to a degree once my situation changed last year, and even kind of before that a little bit. We had a couple instances where, I had to ground my kid a couple times, and, the biggest punishment once they start driving, as you know, is sometimes can be, taking away those car keys and stuff for a little while. And then, it's one of those things where it's like, well, you realize though, if we do that, he can't ride the bus, right? I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you have to, tell them at the beginning of the semester or the beginning of the school year if they're going to be riding the bus. And if you don't, well, they can't. I'm like, since when did that become a rule? Like, so many things have changed, since, anyway, without dating ourselves too much, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's cool. I just, I wasn't really sure how in other words, I hope this wasn't too inconvenient of timing for you or anything.
No, it's fine. And normally, I work at home. My husband and I own a small business here. I'm in San Diego, and we're artists. And so, we sell crafts and things, and my husband's from Peru. So, I work at home, and we work on art at home. And of course I do all the books, and my husband doesn't drive, so I drive him around and do all the business errands. So I'm basically always in the car.
Yeah.
And then I have to drive to fly. So, add that on top of it. So
completely sympathize there. I mean, from 2020 to 2024, I was doing the whole travel deal and drove cross country multiple times. And so I understand the whole kind of living on the road out of your car kind of thing. It's not always fun. So, well, how long have you been in San Diego then?
All my life, actually.
Okay.
I've lived in different parts of San Diego. It's big, I think it's like 100 square miles or something. So it's pretty big. Lived in different parts. I've done a lot of traveling. I've done work and stuff out of the state, but I've always actually lived here. So a lot of changes have happened here in San Diego, and I started falconry in 92. So, just like everyone else around it, we're having, the fields are almost gone. They're all houses now. And the last bit of natural habitat that you can see, you can't even step on it now because there's some endangered species of some sort. And so places that I grew up flying, you can't even step foot on. They've got 12, reams of barbed wire fence around the whole thing. Places where I used to fly Merlins, I can't even walk into now. It's really crazy how much they've destroyed. And because there's no habitat, then the game is really hard. So I'm having to drive further and further out to find fields. It's I'm definitely lamenting because I feel like I'm like one of those old people going, well, back in my day.
Well, it's a running theme. It's a running theme on, it seems like at least once every episode or once every other episode, it's like there's always a segment where we talk about habitat loss, the good old days, so to speak. And
yes.
I mean, even, and as you probably know by now, I mean, I've been in this a relatively short amount of time, being just almost 11 years now. And even the amount of spots that we've lost, even since I've been in this, and I mean, it's so sad. It really is.
Yeah.
That's all you can really say.
Yeah, and and then the rabbit virus for us out here in the West really knocked things down. It is really incredible to spend so much time in the field, and you get to know your fields. You're like, oh yeah, there's that bush, there's that area, there's that wash, there's this, and you're like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a jackrabbit busting out right here, and the jackrabbit never busts out. And so it's really difficult nowadays to do what I used to do. There's a lot of changes I've had to make in how I work with birds, how I train birds. Because back in the day, here again, sounding old, you could take a bird, a chamber raised bird, or an imprint, or whatever, and do very minimal training with it. You could just go out, and the game was going to teach your bird. You go out there, you're going to get, 5 to 10 flushes an hour, and your bird's going to learn the skills just by being on the wing. Now it's very, very difficult to enter any new birds at home because you may only flush one living animal an hour. And I'm talking anything, whether it's a bird or anything, I'm just living animal. So unfortunately, there's a lot of tricks that I never thought in my life I'd have to rely on lure machines and game launchers and things like that just to like keep my bird's head on straight and well muscled just until we start game hawking. And then I end up traveling, going somewhere else where there's games so I can enter the bird. And it used to be, I mean, again, everyone has done this long enough. You have that time where you catch a lot of game, where you just enjoy it. There's so much game. You're like, how much can I catch today? How much can I catch in a season? Okay, I'm going to do 3-4 a day of rabbits or jacks or whatever, or sparrows or whatever. Well, now it's not like that anymore. Now I've shifted the way I think, and I say it's the catch. It's the flush to catch ratio. So I want my bird to catch everything up because that's all I'm going to get. So I have to really, really work hard to get my bird really fit. So if that one rabbit in 2 hours of hiking flushes, my bird's going to catch it. So that's involved some really high-tech weight management, again, lure machines and a lot of travel to get them really fit in different areas. So when I do fly at home, they're ready to go. And so I can't rack up those numbers anymore like I used to. It's not going to happen. But at least we have to challenge ourselves. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get one thing up and I'm catching it. So that's how things has changed for me.
Yeah, I completely get that. And, once again, even in our area, there's only so many spots. And especially once you start going, dividing certain spots by what certain spots will cater to certain species and things like that too, it gets even worse because then you've got to start kind of partitioning. Okay, well, we're going to fly your bird here because, this is a good goshawk spot, and well, we only have a handful of goshawk spots anymore where we can fly, and so on and so forth, and God forbid one of those gets mowed over, then it's like, especially with the with my Ostringer buddies here, God forbid one of those spots get lost, and it's like, all of a sudden, it's it's almost like you got to go to a spot and have your own funeral procession and eulogy following it. that's how big of a deal it is,
I my last goshawk, because I've been, I've mostly flown accipiters. I've flown everything, but my first general bird was a imprint Cooper's hawk. And so I've been flying accipiters for, 30 years. I mean, I've had other things too alongside that, but I generally always have at least one Cooper's hawk or a Sharpie or a Goss. And, the last goshawk I flew, he was a male North American. I flew him 4 seasons. And the last goshawk field I had, it got mowed down. And I went to the field getting ready to fly. I literally sat down on the bank and cried. It's because I've been flying that field for 20 years. And it was a big, giant field. And it was like so dynamic that you don't have to fly the same spot. Like you can just work this one little section. So you can go over here, you could go over there. And with the goshawk, you flush up and they catch it, you're done. I can, wake up really early in the morning, catch a rabbit or two, go home, take my kid to school. I mean, it worked out. It was just so nice. And it's gone now. So, all my goshawks are up for breeding now. Um, and it's sad because, that's what I like to do. I do have a female Cooper's hawk. She's 8 years old. She does fly bunnies, but again, if you don't have enough game for an accipiter to keep their head on straight, you're gonna get in trouble. So what am I doing with her? I'm doing lure machine work, and I really hate it because I'm just hoping that the bunnies get better. We have a really our bunny season goes for falconry until around the 20th of March. And we usually get a bunch of rain in January. So usually February and March, it's just we get a lot of young crop coming up. So I kind of do my falconry in bulk because with the Cooper's hawk, because she doesn't really like sparrows, but she likes the bunnies. So hopefully we'll get a good crop up. I'm just conditioning her now. I let a friend borrow her and I just got her back, and she didn't like my friend. So I'm like, okay. So I'm conditioning her again. So hopefully I'll have a little bit of that. But I've had to shift. I've gone back to flying a passage Harris hawk. I've flown a couple of them. I had one like 15 years ago that was just amazing. I had a lot of game. I had a lot of fields, but she caught 100 jacks her first season, 150 her second. And my seasons are short because I used to do trade shows. So I was doing, 150 head between December and April. So everything up she caught. I just had piles of dead rabbits that I gave to my breeder friends. And anyway, so I don't have that anymore, but I thought, okay, I got to have a bird that is going to see the game. With the accipiter, you got to flush game for it. You got to walk around, kick something up, boop, 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 boop. I just can't. Those slips. I can't do that anymore. So I kind of gone kind of old school, and it's not really what I like to do, but I rather do something else than not practice falconry at all. So I have a passage Harris I trapped at Tucson, and she rides the glove really good, actually, when there's no places to take a pitch. But if there's a tree or a pole, she'll fly right up to it. And they're like dogs themselves. They can see everything. So if something flushes right out, way out, she'll go after it and get it. And she does have a really nice catch, flush to catch ratio. So at least I have that. And then I've got a little Sharpie that was given to me. It's a first-year bird that the person didn't have time for, and it hasn't been entered yet. So I've been managing a little bit of behavioral issues with her, but she's just about ready to start being bagged, and we do get a nice little crop of sparrows coming up. So I kind of have to do that now. I usually only fly one bird, but I kind of have to start some birds and work with them and get, okay, what game am I going to have? And because I have many times I have gone and trapped a merlin or something like that, and then there's no sparrows. You're like, really? And then there's bunnies everywhere. So I try to have one of each, something that'll take birds and something that'll take bunnies, because that's what I have here. And so I'm ready to go whichever crop appears, in our spring hawking season. So anyway, so we'll see what happens. And then if I don't have more bunnies, I'll probably end up releasing the Passage Harris, though. This is her second season. She's great. But if I don't see, an end of this rabbit drought, I'll just let her go, because I don't know. There's no reason to keep her around if I don't have the game for her. So this will be kind of the last season with her to, either yay or nay with her. We'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so that's, it's just, just got to keep going. A lot of people have quit in my local area. I'm one of the few practicing game hawkers in my area. Most people have either moved away or just do abatement. A lot of people do abatement. I would say 80% of the licensed falconers do abatement. We have a lot of resort work. We have a lot of landfill work, military contracts. It's a big place with a lot of pest birds, and there's a lot of abatement people here. A lot of young folks. I feel bad for the young folks because they want to get into falconry, they want to practice, and it's so difficult because it's so hard to enter new birds here. You get a nice passage red and end up having to travel, even to try to, but it's very difficult to be successful here anymore. And I feel for anyone starting. I was lucky because I started when there were a lot of fields. Though that being said, you would think, oh, there's so many fields. But when I started, there were a lot of falconers, lots and lots of falconers, and they were extremely territorial. So even though there were a lot of fields and a lot of rabbits, you would show up to this field and you get kicked out. What are you doing here?
Oh, yeah.
They weren't all that friendly. I had some great mentors, but there were many people that I got kicked out. So even though there was a lot of game, I felt like I was in the fringes for a long time, until people moved away or retired from the sport or whatever. And then I can quote unquote inherit these fields from, the long-standing falconers. Yep. Inherit, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But they don't belong to them, but they're very territorial.
Man, falconry politics in general is just a never-ending roller coaster. But whenever it comes to people and their spots and certain degree of ethics being, we've dealt with that here too, or kind of still always dealing with it. I think anytime you have more than, one group that hunts together, in a kind of a semi-close range, you're going to have some issues at some point in time. And even if it's, even if more people are indoctrinated into a particular hunting group in a particular area and everybody gets along and all that, you still start to eventually have issues where you start to outgrow what you have available. And so we've kind of had to make adjustments in the time that, ever since, I got into it, we've had a handful more guys in our kind of sort of semi close area get into it. And it's a never ending battle. I mean, you're always, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to keep getting worse. And so then of course the joke comes into play. Well, it's always going to be starlings. Always going to be sparrows,
You know what? And I'm going to tell you a little story about how that might not always be true.
Go for it.
So, I hunted kestrels quite a bit in my 20s, and I had a lot of fun with them. I did more of the parking lot style hunting where you put them in a little tree and then the little bushes underneath and you kick it and then they chase them and catch them before they get to the other bush. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I did some car hawking too. But with all the droughts that we've had and our increase in temperature, it's okay, guys, it's 84 today here. It doesn't freeze anymore. And starlings and house sparrows really like the cold, actually. I don't know why they like the cold. Like whenever I go somewhere up north and it's super cold, I'll be out getting a coffee or whatever. And then there's starlings and sparrows. I'm like, why do you guys, I guess because they're from England, right? I mean, it's really cold there. Guess they like that. So it's gotten really warm here. Also too, because of the drought, they've gotten rid of all those little bushes, that the sparrows used to hide in. They got rid of all the Spanish tile that they used to breed in, and then the huge ficus trees that used to support. Man, I remember as a kid, it was a cacophony of sound if you stood next to these ficus trees. It was so loud, and don't park underneath them. I mean, it was bad. They were everywhere. And I don't know if there's any other pathogens or environmental issues why they disappeared, but we don't have starlings and house sparrows anymore. Not really. If I go to there's one Walmart parking lot that has some of those old bushes. I think they're hawthorn. And I saw a couple sparrows. I'm like, wow, sparrows, you know. Our starlings have, because we do have a lot of fruiting trees, they have switched to becoming arboreal. So they don't go to the ground to feed, they go into the trees to feed. And the only time you'll ever see them on the ground is if it rains and they take a bath somewhere. There still are some house sparrows in some of the neighborhoods where people will feed and things like that. But in a public setting, like all the, you know, McDonald's and stuff and all the places I used to fly, they are gone. So I always thought, oh, I'll always have that, but I don't have that. And I don't know if that's gonna. So just by the way, because I'm in southern San Diego, so everything that's ever happened to our country, I get it first. So the heat and everything else, the asper and all the things that kind of are creeping its way north, it's hit me first. And I sure hope it doesn't follow, because I know a lot of people rely on that, but you know, as everything's changing. So yeah, I can drive 2 to 3 hours and I'll never see a starling. So I had to give up the car hawking stuff and, you know, switch. I used to really enjoy flying male Cooper's hawks. They were a blast, but the last one I flew, I drove around 3 hours a day to try to find a slip for them. And I said, well, nope. So we're done. So fatten them up, let them go. That was it.
Yes, especially with the way gas prices are in California.
For sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like $4 a gallon right now. You know, and then they want to add more taxes. And that's one of my favorite things about traveling out of state is filling up. It's like $1.99. I always take pictures and send it to my friends here because they don't believe it.
Yeah, it's on the high side here lately. It's been like 270, 280, but on average here lately, it's been 230s, 240s. And
nice.
And even if you just go 20 minutes from where I live across the border into Kentucky, it's even usually a little cheaper. So,
nice.
But I remember visiting a friend down by, well, he lives in Topanga, but I remember coming from Wyoming into LA a handful of years ago and almost just turning back around. It was just like, how am I even going to afford to get like over the border of California to his place and then back again? Because gas at that point, I think it was like 7 something.
Whoa.
I mean, it was bad.
You fill up right at the border, like out of state. Because even though it's always higher, it's still like a little bit cheap. It's definitely cheaper. Like when I go to the Southwest, I always stop over in Yuma, like the furthest point out of Yuma. There's a Maverick there, and it's always like $2 or $3, where I was paying like $5 at home. Yeah. So I just, it's only, what is it for me? Like 3 hours to get there. So it's like, okay, I look at my gas tank. I'm like, okay, I'm halfway. I'm good. So I fill up there, and then on the way home, I fill up. So little tricks, because I fly a lot in Arizona, and so, but yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, no more driving around aimlessly looking for slips. That's not happening anymore.
No. I don't blame you one bit. And honestly, like, I wouldn't probably do that. I mean, fortunately, where I'm at, we still have, starlings and stuff galore, especially from early March to early June. You can drive hardly any time at all and come into plenty of slips if that's what you're wanting to do.
That's great. I see you have a kestrel back there, so that's your your springtime buddy right there. That's the plan as of right now. It all just depends. I mean, after we stop recording, I'll fill you in more on some other stuff later. But yeah, I mean, that's the plan as of right now. My season just kind of, it took a massive dump, towards the beginning. And so I just finally was just like, I threw in the towel on my season for the rest of it. And was just like, all right, I'm just going to occasionally help my buddies beat for their birds. And then, in the spring, I'll just do this because once again, as you know, goes without saying, going against the grain and fighting the current when it comes to falconry and time and just everything, it's pointless because it stops being fun. Yep.
If it's not fun, why do it? So.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. You have to adapt. That's kind of the name of the game lately for me, is adapt.
For sure.
It's hard to change your whole outlook on how you do things.
Sure.
But I think that's what we have to do in falconry. We can't do the same things. I think that's like something that we all have to think about, is just because we used to do something a certain way doesn't mean we can continue doing that. And as we lose our feels in our game, we have to really think about, because, the standard, in the past, like I was saying before, is to cut weight a little bit and then go out and go hunting. And there's a lot of people who still want to do that here where we live, and we just don't have the game for that anymore. So then you end up having birds with a lot of behavioral problems and aggression and stuff, because you've got this bird at a lower weight with no game. And it's like, well, time to buy a lure machine if you want to keep doing imprints, accipiters anyway. It's best probably not to do them at all. I always say, if you can't produce 10 slips an hour, easy slips an hour, you really shouldn't do an imprint. And that's asking a lot. And that's just the easy way. You can still do it with 5, but then you're going to have to play some tricks like lure machines and stuff for a while. But if you only get 1 slip an hour, like I do, can't do it anymore. I'm done. I can't. I've been flying imprint accipiters since 94? I can't. I'm not doing it. Just not until I move somewhere one day. Maybe hopefully I can move somewhere, but I'm tied here with family and our business and stuff. So, family comes first. I've always integrated falconry with my family. I've never skipped a season. I was flying when I was pregnant, 9 months pregnant, running around, getting slips up for a Merlin with my belly bouncing around. It was hilarious. I carried kids in a backpack when I went hawking. I switched species, and flew things easier. I flew Harrisocks too. Harrisocks are great when you have toddlers and stuff, and you have to juggle work and everything. Cause I used to get off work at 3. I was, before our business started, I was a zookeeper at the San Diego Zoo. And so, I would get off work early at 3, run home, grab my Harrisock, go catch a rabbit, and then go run over to the after school program, pick up my kid. It's just something I did. I just, I adapted to every situation, but I've always flown. I haven't skipped any seasons. But that being said, for me, the family comes first. Our business, our livelihood, all that comes first. A lot of people tell me, just move. Well, my husband doesn't drive. He has to live in the city. He has a disability. He can't drive. So, I can't move. I wish I could. I have a dream. Oh, I'd love to buy a ranch somewhere with a bunch of property where I can just walk out my back door. And, if I sold my house now, I can do that, because I live in San Diego and my house is worth a fortune just sitting here.
Yeah, I bet.
So I could totally do that, but I can't do that because I have a family. I have an autistic son, and I have a husband that, we take care of each other, and, they come first. My eldest is 28, and he just moved to Ohio. He's an electrical engineer, and his wife and he just bought a house for like $230,000, which is awesome, because the median price here is $800 for a house right now, which is crazy. So I'm really proud of them. And so, I look at that and said, I did a good job. I worked hard. I sacrificed everything for them. And, did I drop everything and go fly? No, I didn't. I flew. I've always flown. But did I go out and, keep flying species that didn't match my area? No. And I've always switched around, and I'll continue doing so. That's why I have a Passage Harris. And I will say this, it's been really nice, because my son's been coming out with me a lot. He loves, he'll wake up early. He loves to go hawking with me, and the Harrisock is just so conducive to that. Doesn't matter what you wear, what you're doing. Don't swing the stick so high or whatever stupid little things that a goshawk might not like. I don't have to worry about it. when he was younger, he couldn't come with me with the Goshawks because they took such long slips, and I didn't want to leave him in the dust, because, my last Goss would take, 200-yard slips after a rabbit and catch it. And then I have to run before the coyotes or the ravens get to him. And, I can't leave a kid in the field. So he couldn't come with me. So he could never come with me he had to stay home with the Goshawks. So it's really nice to kind of switch things up and just have some enjoyable falconry. And he's, picking up on it. He really likes it. I think someday he might even become a falconer if he, once he, gets his life in order and stuff like that. He does like the Harris hawks out of all the birds that we've had, just because you have to tiptoe around them or do this and, sneak around the corner in the Sharpie baits and, that sort of thing. It's just like the Harris hawks just sit there with the foot up. He's like, yeah, okay. He likes it so much better because of that.
Yeah, well, and so do most falconers. Period. I mean,
yeah, I really love Cooper's hawks a lot. I mean, I've worked with them quite extensively, and for 20 years, I took just about every Cooper's hawk from the rehabbers. So I did 10 to 20 a year, and it's because they just couldn't handle them. They couldn't deal with it. They just immediately put them down. Oh, it's just going to kill itself in this. So I use falconry methods, hoods and tip jesses and training, basic training, and a lot of hacking out. I did a lot of hacking. It was a lot of fun. I used to take all the young birds and hack them out here. So yeah, it was amazing to hack out all these Cooper's hawks at once and really watch their behavior. I didn't realize how social they were until I started hacking out multiple birds together. And they have a diverse body language. Something that, I observed and kind of copied it a bit. Here's something really interesting. The older birds that are out hack will feed the younger birds. So the ones that have been out hacked for a couple months, when the new ones come out, they'll actually, the new ones are a little scared, don't come back into the hack area and to eat. So the older ones will come in and grab food and fly up to the trees and actually feed the younger ones. I never thought they were that social. One of the things that they do, which I find fascinating, is, and these are Western Cooper's hawks, by the way, there'll be a bird with food eating on the platform. And another bird will come in, and they both start to lower their heads. They bow. One will bow, the other one will bow. And then the one who wants the food will stare at the other one. Now, if the one who has the food starts bowing their head, then the other one will come over and shimmy, and they kind of put their wing down, almost like a rooster will put their wing down, and they'll shimmy over, and they'll take the food, and then the other one will just kind of turn its head away, and then fly off. Now, if a bird comes in who wants the food, it'll stare it down. And then the one who has the food, who wants to keep its food, who says, no, I'm not done eating, you can't have this, it'll stare it down too. So they'll have this showdown where they stare down, and then the bird that has the food will lunge and attack the other one, just kind of fist bump it and displace it, and then make the other one fly off. And I'm like, wait a minute. And you know how we've always like considered like Cooper's hawks like face grabbers, like, oh, they're face bagger, they go to your face. Well, I'm just wondering if we've just been, sending them the wrong signals all along. So, for instance, I have actually gotten my own imprints to start eating by bowing my head. So they're sitting there kind of, how sometimes they hold food and they're being a little possessive and you're like, would you just eat? Well, I start bowing my head and I look up at them and I bow my head. And I look at them, and they kind of look, and they kind of do this mechanical motion with their head, and they bow down a couple times, and then they start eating. I'm like, what? And then another time I was at a falconry picnic, and this gentleman had a passage Cooper's hawk who had not eaten in 4 days. And I said, well, let's because I had used this method myself. So I said, let's go in the house and, let's see what we can do. So I get the bird, I pick her up out of the box and unhood her, have food waiting on the glove, and she's looking around. And we're in a quiet room. We're sitting on the couch there, and I look at her, and I also cheat. I do bird calls. So I go like that, and she looks at me, and I go, and then I lower my head, and I look at her again. I kind of look at the food, lower my head again, look at the food, and then she does the same thing with her little mechanical look like this, and then she looks up at me, and then she starts eating. And the guy's like, "What?" And I said, "Well, I learned this by observing the rehab birds that I was doing." And I said, "They have this crazy body language, and I certainly don't know it all. But it worked, and it's worked for me with my own birds that I've trapped." And so there's something to that, something to that. And so I'm wondering if all these years too, where we've got a Cooper's hawk, sitting on a kill or sitting on the lure, and we're staring, we're primates, right? So we look at them like this, huh, and that means to them, you want their food. So I know a lot of people instinctively look away, when their bird's on a kill. We just kind of learn to do that. A lot of people say, don't stare at your bird. Don't stare at your bird. So, I don't think, if you do this, you don't have that problem. But I'm just wondering if we just, I don't know. I don't know about you. I like watching birds eat. I enjoy it. I like watching them pick, and I don't know. It's just a thing. But so I have to consciously peripherally watch them. So I'm not actually staring at them, because I think with the Cooper's hawk it sends the wrong signal. So anyway, it is really, it's fun to have opportunities like that, to work with the species in bulk like that. Cause I don't know, I probably rehabbed 400 of them. And you learn a lot that way through feather care, how to take care of them, their diet, the illnesses that they get, because you're working hand in hand in vets, and you see all the illnesses they get from the wild, all of them. And so it's really changed my own falconry. One of the things down here where I live is just keeping things alive, because it never freezes here. It's always warm here. And everything gets sick here, whether it's a Cooper's hawk or a Harris hawk or something like that. So, it's changed the way I do things, because, I notice all these birds are coming in. They're coming in with frounce. They're coming in with asthma. These are wild birds. They're coming in with all these diseases. And I'm like, and then I had, 20 years ago, I had my own bad luck. I lost a Cooper's hawk to asper. I lost a Cooper's hawk to frounce. And so I said, I got to change the way I do things, because a lot of times I would do is I get a new bird, either it's an imprint or an ice. And then I'm chugging along in the season, and then boom, the bird gets sick, and then it gets better, and then boom, it goes down. So I said, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of birds always being sick and going down. So I'm a real proponent of treating birds preventatively. So every bird down here gets treated. They have to, right off the trap: asper, frounce, coccidia, worms, because I found now that when I do that, before I reduce their weight, I just treat them for everything. I don't run into that, 3 or 4 months later, they go down again. So that's been kind of a major change in my falconry, and I see it every day down here. I mean, a lot of apprentices will bring me sick birds. They've trapped them and had a different sponsor that, doesn't know the area. So they don't know that you have to treat the birds. And, I've had birds over here that are on the brink of death that I've had to save this year because of actually capillaria. Capillaria has been really, really bad this year. So a lot of our birds have gone down. This is a really horrible place to keep birds alive, by the way. It's like, why do I do this? I don't know, but because I think, when you start falconry as a young person, you're a kid, it's just part of your blood. You're not getting rid of it. But sometimes I sit back and go, man, this is stupid. Like, I'm treating my hares for coccidia right now, even though I already treated her earlier in the season, but she really went down. And, started burning hot, and it's just like, this is the best time of the season, and now you're getting sick. It's just so annoying. So, and I have a bunch of my other friends down here are doing the same thing with their birds. So we have a real big struggle down here. But it's okay. We'll get her done. She's almost better. And I'm still flying her. I'm just flying her, lightly. But anyway, so it's just, so that's kind of been the biggest change of my falconry. Is it's become so much of a medical thing. And it ends up being, because of that experience, I probably spend 2 hours a day helping people throughout the nation with their sick birds. It's like what I do, like when I'm not working, whether it's a blood sugar issue and trying to get a crashed bird going, or some other issue. A lot of people don't have vets. I'm helping people around the world who don't have access to vets. I'm not a veterinarian by any means. And if something really critical, I said, you got to go to the vet. But if it's just something simple like coccidia or worms or something, we can take care of that. But I do spend a lot of time with that. And then, the imprint season's coming. So I'll be doing that. There's a lot of people. I have written a lot of articles on raising imprints and training, and kind of the methods that's required when you don't have a lot of game. There's a lot to be, little formulas, I guess you can say, or just routines that you have to do and schedules you have to hold in order to make an imprint without a lot of game. And my first thing I always say to people is, how much game do you have? And they'll tell me, and I said, you shouldn't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. But you can't. I'm also not in the market of shattering people's dreams. You want to fly a Goss, you want to fly a coop. It's the only thing you think about. Who am I? Who am I to shatter that dream? I'm not doing that. So, not going to do that.
Yeah.
It's a challenge though, because now we're dealing with the situation where someone doesn't really have the game for it. And so, so it makes the job a lot harder to help someone along with that. But I could at least send them the articles and be there for them when they run into issues. And it usually ends up being, though, at the end of it, you really have to travel if you're going to keep this bird. You're at that pinnacle point where you need slips now, and so if you want to continue with this bird, you're going to have to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
For sure. So, yeah. So anyway, it does kind of end up being my quote busy season of helping people online, and that's fine. I'm here to do, I'm here, but I just wish it was easier for all of us. I just wish we all lived somewhere where there's a lot of game and people could be successful. I feel bad, because these people are trying so hard. And, falconry is so personal. You don't want to fail, and we tend to blame ourselves so much if we fail. But sometimes it's just not meant to be where we are.
No, not at all. And, there's the old saying, wish in one hand, and what in the other, and, see which one gets filled first. I mean, unfortunately, reality is reality, no matter how we want to slice it sometimes. And, as far as the whole crushing dreams thing, I know we as falconers have this tendency to still kind of lean towards doing what we want to do anyway, regardless of the advice that we get. But the way I look at it anymore is I don't go out of my way to give unsolicited advice or anything anymore because of that. Usually, not that my opinion matters a whole lot anyway, but like people that do become apprentices with our group or whatever and that kind of stuff, if they ask opinions and stuff, I don't look at it as crushing dreams. I look at it as sometimes as just trying to save someone from themselves occasionally, because there's sometimes people that get an idea in their head, they want to do this, and it's a terrible idea, And I don't have a problem anymore, really. Just if they ask my opinion, and I think it's a terrible idea, there's been times where I know that someone either has or should have told me that I had a terrible idea, and maybe possibly things might have turned out differently. I don't know. Hindsight obviously is always 2020, but I look at it as, look, I mean, you can do this, you're going to do what you want probably, but you're going to have issues most likely if you do this. And, just try and do your best to save people from themselves sometimes, because ultimately it not only is it not going to be good for the bird, but it's also not going to be good for that person. Like you said, we're so self-critical, and we're so, and falconers in general, just sensitive anyway, and quick to bruise, and oftentimes we are our own worst critics. And there's a lot of times where someone chooses the path of the most resistance and doesn't even fully comprehend or realize it, but afterwards they beat themselves up over something that happens so much. It's just like the self-defeating prophecy. And if you can help someone avoid that, then sometimes their life in general is just going to end up being better.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, I've written a lot of, I'm an artist, so I do a lot of illustrations. And one of the things I've been doing lately, and I'm actually going to write an article about it, is, the capabilities of every accipiter that we have available to us. A lot of people will think sometimes they can make something into something that isn't. For instance, a Cooper's hawk isn't a goshawk, no matter how you shake it. There's some great Cooper's hawks out there. You can make them great. You can work really, really hard to make them catch birds on the wing. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of bagging. You can do it, but it'd be a lot easier just to get a goshawk because they'll do it anyway, that sort of thing, but that's like the thing that happens most often is people really have this idea of what they want to do with one bird or another. And I'm like, it's not going to do that. Like where you live, I'm sorry. I know you want to do that, but that's not how they fly. That's not how they work. And it's just not going to happen. And that's probably the hardest thing to get through, especially like to the first year general that, I think when we're young, or just young in the sport, we just want to get everything, we want to do everything and things like that. And it's really hard to kind of put that reality stop there and go, well, it's not going to do that. I want to catch, I don't know, whatever species that they're targeting. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to do it,
Yeah, for sure. And yeah.
So yes, so I do a lot of that. Again, like I'm saying, I don't want to crush dreams either, but at the same time, like you, I do have to kind of put the brakes on some things and say, it's probably not, it's mostly about the game though. It's mostly about like, oh, well, I might see, one rabbit, 30 minutes. And I'm just like, just get something else. Don't try to fly an accipiter with that. It's not going to work. It's going to be really frustrating. And then you'll get bad behaviors. It's just not worth it, So, it's tough to, it's tough what we're doing right now. I mean, there are some folks that have good game, good slips, and are living the life, and I enjoy it. I enjoy watching. I'm so happy for them. It's like, that's good. That's good. But there's a bunch of other places around the country you're like, that's not the reality for everybody. And I think it'll be our job as falconers, if we want to keep doing the sport, it's like, how are we going to adapt to that? What are we going to do?
It's unfortunately, in a lot of instances, the same Burger King, we don't get to have it our way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, as that old saying goes. And yeah, I mean, it's, as you said at the beginning of the conversation, adaptability is everything. Sometimes it's either you have the choice of, okay, well, this is what you got to do now, or you just need to not do it at all. And we all have those kind of come to Jesus moments. I mean, I'm going through one right now myself, and other people that I know are going through one. Sometimes things just don't go your way. And sometimes you just have to understand that whether you like it or not, sometimes it's okay. I mean, this is, once again, this is supposed to be fun. I joke with my buddies all the time that, no matter what we think as falconers, sometimes it's not like we're out in the field curing cancer. We're not coming up with a cure for AIDS or, we're not, this is something that we just do, but we let this consume us so much that we think, like you said, we're so afraid of failure. We're so afraid of being looked down on for this, that, or the other, and whatever, and sometimes it's okay to just take a step back and realize, okay, just because I can't do this now doesn't mean I can't ever do it. It's just, patience is everything sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes we're lucky enough to change our circumstance and move. A lot of people have.
Sure.
Most of the falconers, the old timers, they moved out. They saw it, because they had been flying here in the 60s and 70s, and they saw what was happening. And they're like, nope. And they packed up, moved to Idaho and Utah and all these other great places. And some of them are still around and still getting it done. And, they did it. They were able to do it. Will that be an option for me in the future for retirement? Maybe. Hoping. That's, you have to have dreams and goals and what have you. And then, get back into some different kind of niche falconry, it'd be fun to do that, just change it up, but, I still want to do the sport. So like I said, I've got to change what I do. It might not be what I want to do, but I still want to fly. I still love being out there.
Sure.
Heck.
100%. But, well, before we get too much further, let's go ahead and get the rest of your,
of course,
how you got into it, when you discovered it, were you a kid, how hard was it for you to get in, and kind of cover that some. And then I do have a couple other questions that I want to ask you before we do the usual stuff, but go ahead and just dive into that.
Sure. Well, I think, I'm a bird nerd. So, I've always loved birds. Kind of my passion for birds started about 8 years old. My grandma had wild birds. I used to, catch them in the backyard and pet them and whatever. And I used to draw them. And it started a passion for birds. I just read every book I could about birds. And then, I started, doing the bird calling stuff, which is my other persona. At least it used to be. But, and then, and, my mom used to work at a library. So like a lot of us, she brought home a book. She brought home Falcon's Return by Heinz Mang. And I read that, and I don't know what happened. It just kind of sunk into me. And then, of course, I read My Side of the Mountain, like so many of us, and wanted to live that life. And then on top of that, my father has a friend who had flown Cooper's Hawks in the 60s. So I remember probably being 6 or 7 years old of this friend of his telling me stories of flying Cooper's Hawks on quail. And I don't know why that intrigued me so much, and over the years, he's worked with my dad for like 30 years, and he would come over and he showed me how to make traditional jesses when I think I was, 12 or something, and taught me how to make ball shotry nooses, which I still use to this day. But he had never flown again. I think he flew before he had kids, and then once he had kids, he stopped and never flew again. But he obviously contaminated my brain because, the first thing I could do when I was general was to get a Cooper's Hawk.
Oh boy, yeah, the old stereotype,
Yeah, but I had a great mentor with that bird, and I actually caught game with that bird, and the bird was great and had good manners and everything. So it's all about that mentorship. But I actually met a falconer when I was 14, and you have to remember, this is back in the time that there's no internet. It's really difficult to meet anybody. And so there was this old guy here. His name was Frank Todd, and a friend of mine from school, heard that I liked falconry. I went over to his house, and he had a kestrel that was in movies and stuff, and he let me hold it. His name was Clark, and his house is what my house is now, full of books and hoods and feathers and all the things that falconers have, statues and art, and but I just remember just being enamored by that, just looking at the scenery around me and just, oh my gosh, this is amazing. He bred Harris hawks. He was like one of the first people to breed Harris hawks. I couldn't see them because it was breeding season, and then unfortunately he passed away. And that was kind of the end of my contact to falconry. And, when you don't know about fish and game, or you don't know about what to do or where to be, you can't, it's really hard to become a falconer. You don't know what to do. How do you do it? How do you find someone? Because they're not in the phone book, it's on the yellow pages, and I didn't even know about fish and game when I was a teenager. I just had no idea. And then I was with a friend of mine in a recording studio, and I met Dan Milner, because that's what he did, was the recording in San Diego. He's lived in San Diego. And I don't know, I think I saw a picture on the wall of him and a bird, and I said, "Are you a falconer?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And this was when I was 20 years old. And I said, "I want to be a falconer. It's what I want to do." And he's like, "Well, let me help you out." So he got me in contact with the California Hawking Club. The apprentice chair at the time was Mike Faircloth. And then I got a chance to talk to Craig Culver on the phone for a while. And these are, some old time, really great people here in San Diego. And back then you had a list of books you had to get from Nicholson Books, everything you had to buy from a bookstore. And they didn't even have a California study guide back then. They had the New York study guide. So we had to, so I was told what I had to do and all the steps and things like that. And it worked out really well for me, because I met Dan in August of that year, studied for my test, took my test, and had my first bird by October. I had my inspection. It all was serendipitous. It worked out. I remember going into the federal building where I took my falconry exam, and I looked up and a peregrine flew over. That I go, well, that had to have been, a good sign anyway. And so, so that's how I started. And, I've been flying ever since.
Cool. Awesome. Well, now that we've got that, I do want to ask a couple of questions about, especially with, being as you've had so much experience with accipiters and all that. I'm curious because, while I've only flown, a couple or so myself, and came to the determination early on that the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze for me, especially being where we're at here. Although that doesn't stop some buddies of mine, they're diehard Goshawk guys, and that's fine. Teach their own, whatever. But now that I've seen Goshawks in particular fly for, a little over a decade now, and have heard kind of how they imprint and how other people imprint, and all this stuff. Once again, for the million bazillionth time, falconers and their opinions, whatever. But, out of curiosity, though, as far as you're concerned, what's your favorite method of imprinting? And there's different theories that people have as far as, it works, what doesn't. I want to find that out from you first, what your favorite is, or what your preferred method is, and then ask a follow-up question to that, because I am curious about another thing that seemed to work for a buddy of mine, but we're all kind of still TBD as far as whether or not that could be repeatable or not. So go ahead and elaborate on your personal, favorite way of doing it, and then we'll go from there.
I've tried all kinds of different methods. I've had some incredible mentors. Jim Bryan being the one that helped me when I was young. Now, Jim Bryan has a totally non-food association, 100%. Surrogate rearing. I've used it. It's quite interesting. it's very, very labor intensive. It's basically, and this is not the method I use. I just kind of want to explain it because there's so many different ways, but I have used it and it does work. And I might use it again for certain species. So that's why I want to kind of mention this, but it's a surrogate method, which basically what you do is you have another hawk, whether it's a Harris hawk or whatever, and the bird imprints on that other hawk. So it's pretty elaborate because every time you feed your eyas, it has to be fed in front of that hawk. It can be pretty elaborate because you have to build what you call an imprint box, which is like a 4x3 box with a plexiglass front with a food chute, and the bird has to be old enough to eat on its own. So you basically have to, cover the front with a towel, be very, very quiet, let the bird sit by itself for about an hour. And then, you feed the Harris hawk or goss or whatever you have that's sitting on a, table or whatever. And it's eating its food. And then you walk behind the imprint box, you lift it up, and then the bird sees the other bird eating. And, it works really, really well. The last one I did was a breeder friend of mine, the female Harris hawk died. She was very, very old and she died. So I imprinted the eyas. I puppet reared it. I made a puppet for it. So, and I had a brooder that was one-way mirror glass. This is all stuff that I used to do at the zoo. I made a puppet reared it, and then it only saw for whenever there's food, it saw the other Harris hawk. So I've done prairie falcon with this method. I've done some goshawks. I've done lots of Cooper's hawks, lots of rehab Cooper's hawks with this method. And it does work really well if you want a very tame eyas, because you take it with you. So you let it chill out for a while after it's eaten. Then you close everything up, let it rest, and then you take it out and then you bring it everywhere with you. So it doesn't see you with food at all. And then from there, you raise it like anything else. You do a lot of bagging and what have you. It's interesting. It's extremely time consuming. If you have a job or so, it's really hard to do. But I will say this: I raised my very, very first Cooper's hawk with this method, and that bird was solid. There was no screaming, no mantling. Well, he mantled a little bit here and there, but for the most part, he didn't mantle. He just was so easygoing. I had no aggression, yet he was tame as a dog. So there's something to that method. I don't use it so much now because I am purposely making imprints for my friend's breeding project. So all the biases that I've raised lately, I want to be fully imprinted. So I've used the McDermott recipe before. I've used that. You have to be very, very consistent with that method. I do a little bit of that, but the main difference between what I do and maybe what the McDermott method is I don't lower weight at all. So I'll tell you what I do. And again, it's extremely time consuming. I get an eyas, a fuzzball, and as soon as they're able to be thermoregulated, so you feed. I do the plate method of feeding, so they're eating through a plate or a dish or a bowl throughout the day. Just like the McDermott method will do. I do that, and then but I pull food. About when we go to bed, about 10 o'clock, right? And the eyas is going to be the most hungry the first thing in the morning. So I wake up in the dark. I usually use a kitty litter pan as a nest, and then I set that kitty litter pan into a plastic tote. It keeps when I travel and everything, it keeps the mutes from going everywhere. So what I do is I cover it with a dark sheet, pick it up in the dark, go to the field. It's still dark. I go out in the field. I take the nest out. I walk in the field. It's barely light. I cover the food dish with a hand towel and I walk away. And when I say field, I mean, I'm usually somewhere different every day. I do go to different fields, but I'm also, a lot of goshawks will have phobias of stupid things later in life. So I want to make sure I expose them with everything. So I'm next to the trolley. I'm next to a train. I'm next to the buses. I'm next to the water, the bay. a creek, a river, horses, dogs, you're seeing it. We're going to the dog park today, that sort of thing. So they're learning to eat in an extremely, quote, stressful environment. They're very, very hungry. And they're not fed at home when they're the most hungry. So there's no food association with your house when they're hungry. So their first meal of the day is out in the open. The sun starts to come, or the daylight starts to come up. I kind of walk away, kind of hide, pull a string. They kind of look around. Oh, food, squee, and they'll start eating like that. Then I'll let them, relax and things like that. Now, as they get older, when they get more mobile, they have to work for their food. So I'll put their dish is easier to do at first. So they're still half down, just getting some feathers, but kind of wobbly. I'll set that dish, a few inches away from their nest ball. So they have to jump out, go out and eat it. They can jump around, flap their wings. And then when they're tired, they just crawl back in and then you go home. And so as they get older, that their job gets harder and harder. I'll introduce the lure. I do a multiple transfer system. That's in an article I wrote in NAFA in 2019. I have that article. If anyone ever wants it, I can send it their way via email. But it's a multiple trade-off method. I adhere to, when ISs are in that baby stage, when they're really young, that you don't want them to have anything they can hold in their foot. They become possessive over it. So, whether it's a rabbit lure or a bag or whatever, I usually trade off to like a golf disc with tidbits. So they'll get tidbits, and I integrate a recall lure into it as well. So they get they're really, really hungry when they first grab something for their first time, whether it's, like you said, a bunny lure or whatever. So I want them to have like an instant reward of a pile of tidbits, moistened tidbits that's easy to eat. So they feel that satisfaction, right? Oh, okay, this feels really good. I'm good. And so they're less inclined to be possessive when I present the lure. So I do this whole thing where when they're little, they have to work for their food. So they have to jump to the plate and then run over and get, there's a tidbit on the lure, run over there. And then I'll put like a little perch out and I'll have a tidbit over there. Oh, jump on the perch. So they're actively thinking, what am I going to do in my next step? I got to go this, and that. They're not sitting there with one solid food item going, I want this and you can't have it. They're actively engaging. So I do that. And I train them to jump up to a little perch. This is Jim Bryan taught me this, Jim Bryan, because when they're elevated off the ground, and that's their last stage, they're easier to pick up. Now, there's lots of other methods you can use to pick up. Tyler Sladen, he picks up with the plate. That's very innovative. I had never thought about that. He does use the plate method to transfer off, but he just picks the bird up to transfer and then backs them up onto the glove. I think that's very clever. I haven't tried that yet, but I might in the future. But for a real young IS, I kind of want to stay kind of hands off. You don't want to force a young IS to step on the glove before they're ready, because they can develop glove fear because they're wobbly. So I do a lot of training and hands off. So because a lot of early things that we can do can affect their fear level later. So I just make them work and I take them everywhere. They're with me all the time. I in a perfect world, I'll do an afternoon, outside thing as well, but with the kids and stuff picking school, I haven't been able to do that so much. So after the initial training session in the morning, at that point of day, they just have free feed the rest of the day. So when they're sleeping, I just take a fresh dish of tidbits, just kind of people do with the McDermott method, same thing, and then, but they have to work from an early age. So by the time they're branchers, I'm walking around with this nest, and I'm walking in the field. I have the whole setup in the field and I take them to it. They can't fly. They're too young to be tethered, but they're working. So I go out like that, put the thing down, they jump out and do their whole routine. So they're learning to work and eat in a really crazy environment. There's construction workers going on. They're in the field and they're learning that when they're the most hungry, the field is where they're going to be fed, not at home. And I've raised several imprints of doing that, quite a few of goshawks and zero. They don't scream at all. Zero, nothing. Only in the breeding season, they'll kept. My buddy has a project, and they'll sound up during the breeding season, which is normal, but they do not scream at all. And what that means though is you're going out at first light, like my German goshawk that I have, 270 days in a row without a day off that I took that bird to the field.
That's intensive.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it works, but you can't half do it at all. You have to be really committed with that. But it does work. I don't have the fear. So why would you do that? Well, the reason why I have to do that is because I can't use weight loss methods here. A lot of people, it doesn't get cold here. So my winters are 60 degrees, maybe. And goshawks don't like that. They don't like a goshawk, there's a whole other gear to them when it gets cold. And the colder it is, the more amped up. It's like everything inside them says, I got to eat or I'll freeze overnight and I'll die. I mean, but when you're here, we're in Southern California, they don't have that. They're like, I don't need that. So they tend to, if you don't do that sort of thing with them, they tend to develop a lot of phobias and fears and things like that. And then you have to lower their weight. And when you lower their weight, then they get sick and then they die. So it's like, this is a method I use. And what I found at the end of it is that I have birds that have great behaviors because they're a lot heavier. They're being trained on routine versus weight loss. I mean, it's a 5-month training process of lure machine and bagging, intensive stuff, but they're eating and doing all this with keels that are round. There's no keel to these birds. And so I just keep going and going and going with this. It's so boring and hard to do this. Okay, I'm not lying. It's hard. But when September, October comes, it gets cool-ish. And then I can travel, hunting seasons are over and I can go places where it's cold. And all of a sudden that round fat weight that my bird just trains at now becomes a hunting weight because they're keen. And so you got this powerful, strong bird that has been exercised all season long. I give the same courtesy to a goshawk as I would a gerfalcon or any other falcon. We would never expect a falcon to go, fly up 1,000 feet right away. We train them incrementally every day, right? They go, well, I do the same thing for my goshawks. They are going further and further and further every day. The game launcher is set further and further every day. The game that I launch is harder and harder and bigger every day. And so, I say every day, but I mean, it's like a 4-month process. It's very long. But by the end of it, they're catching fast, hard flying things that were raised in game pens far away and grabbing them in the air, bringing them down. I do a lot of anti-carrying training. And they're just pumped up. So when I can finally travel, they're ready to go. And I don't have to do any weight loss. And so because of that, I don't have that screaming. I don't have that mantling. All my birds eat tight-winged, completely tight-winged. Blood sugar has a lot to do with it too. Down here, because of the warm, I can't give a big crop like everyone else can. You guys all can do these big crops. And because it's so much colder, your birds are burning more grams per hour. Well, they don't do that here. So I had to, in order to keep them in line, their mind in line, I have to feed twice a day. So I do a 3/4, 1/4 split of their daily intake. And I'll tell you what, it works really well. Having that blood sugar always going through them. It's the same thing. If you guys are feeding out there, 150 grams a day, your bird's going to have this big crop and it's going to poop it all out. And it's never going to be green. But our problem is that, we only could feed maybe, 60 to 80 grams a day, and so, so how do you even do that? Well, you split it up. So, I give like a little snack, I feed my birds in the box in the dark. I pull them out. I have a puck light. I have a astroturf in the bottom of the box. I have a puck light with a remote. And so it's dark, I weigh the bird in the dark. Bird doesn't really notice me that much. And pick it up, put some food in the back of the box. They jump in, eat it. and they're done. Turn off the puck light. We're done. Now you can do this. Their first season, I usually do this like in a garage or something far away from where they'll ever see or perch. You got to really think about that. Like, where are you feeding this bird, and is he going to associate this area with food later? So I work really hard if I do, when I do get a snack, to make sure it's never in a place where he's ever going to see again. And that's usually at my garage. So I have the box in the garage. So those little tricks have helped me. So I live in the city. I have neighbors, so my birds have to be quiet. I can't have a screaming bird. I can't use let's cut the weight method and see what happens. I can't do it. So that's the method that I use basically. And it's really, really hard, but it works though. It works really well. It's really kept their behavior and their health. All our birds, my friend of our, where birds are they're all old. These are birds that my friend Randy West and we've raised and now they're in his breeding project, but they're all 12, 11, 10, 9, 8 years old. They all flew for a few years and then went to breeding projects, and it's kept them alive.
Yeah.
I'm 85% humidity and 84 degrees right now.
Rub it in.
Yeah.
Jerk. Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, my buddies, especially early season, always have issues. I mean, there's one buddy in particular that, kind of had to stop flying his one bird while he had it. Until almost like he could almost start flying until mid to late October, just because that bird,
Yep.
It did not matter. I mean, that bird would not act right at all until it got cooler. And yeah, I mean, I'm always curious to find these things out from people though, because like long wingers who are their own level of, whatever, opinionated in a lot of ways.
Yep.
Accipiter people are right up there. Also.
Oh yeah.
And so to follow up with that though, so another buddy of mine inherited a second year goshawk. We we jokingly called it all season the first year graybird because the other mutual buddy that had it before the whole first immature year did pretty much nothing with it. Kept it in the mew. Dropped live quail and stuff. And we all thought that once our other buddy got this goshawk that it was just not going to probably turn out well.
Yeah.
That bird actually has turned out very well. It's actually a really well-mannered bird, hunts well. And so there's running theories now, in our little group, as to whether or not that could be repeated again. I mean, my one buddy's just like, there's no way in hell I'd ever let a goshawk sit through its first year, no matter what. I don't care if it was proved to be, useful or not or whatever. But that's basically what our one buddy did was he let this goshawk basically stay in the mew, just basically, tubed it or tossed it, live quail throughout its first year, didn't hardly do anything with it. And then once it got molted out and everything, my other buddy took it over and kind of did the normal thing. Somehow magically it turned out okay. I mean, I know that there's probably little details that I'm not privy to because I obviously was not there through the whole process and stuff, but I'm kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were on that. And, without obviously knowing many details either, what your gut instinct would be, or just, your overall take on that.
I think, I was really actually very, very happy for him that he was able to get that bird hunting. That's good. My experience has been with second year birds, or even further that have never hunted before. Is that a male? Was it a male, by the way?
Female.
Or female? Especially with females. Females tend to be a little lazy as they get older. If you think about it, the Tiercel's catching food for them and feeding them throughout the breeding season. And so once they kind of learn that food comes from somebody else, they're like, hey, feed me. You know what I mean? So they get that mentality, and it's really, really hard to get them out of it. I mean, your friend must have worked very, very hard. I have had friends that have taken birds like that, and turn them around, but it's very, very difficult because there's some kind of disconnect sometimes if they sit in a chamber and they don't learn to kill that first season at all, that later on they don't want to kill anymore. They just won't. They have no prey drive. Now, I don't think I'd ever want to do that here. I've seen it fail too many times, but maybe you guys have it cold enough that that cold weather kicking in kind of stimulates them, that kind of gets that primal, like, I gotta kill now. So it might actually work for you guys. We might as well be in two different countries, by the way, just how our methods are.
Sure.
That's why that's why it's like we always have to be an open-minded about what other people do, because we don't live where they live and experience what they do. And so like I'm looking at that situation going, that's really cool, because I bet that cold stimulated that bird enough to go like, yeah, let's get it on. Let's go kill stuff, But I could say down here, it hasn't worked because it's just so warm. There's never anything to kick that into gear. Though that kind of plays on another thing, though. Other people have done this before. And I have kind of done it. Not flown a bird myself, but other people have raised other people's birds. So when you raise a bird, the bird will imprint on you really, really hard. And any of those aggression kind of or noisy sort of tendencies will be on you. That's the way it is. But I don't know if you've heard the stories, but there's been many stories over the years where someone will raise a goshawk and the bird, they go through a dispersal, especially the North American males. They go through a really bad period of dispersal. It's a migratory thing. I kind of get it. If you're on migration, you have to become more heightened and aware of your surroundings. I really feel like, especially male North American goshawks, there's like a veil that's lifted over their eyes and they see things for the first time. And because if they're on migration, everything wants to eat you and kill you. So you have to be hyper nervous and aware of everything. So like that orange hat that never bothered him before, after dispersal, August, September, oh my God, an orange hat. I mean, that's the way they are. And so some of that, unfortunately, can make a bird phobic on another person. I've seen it happen many times. I even had a bird become phobic of me. And it was just one instance, too, during the dispersal period where the bird I don't hold my birds back, but I was in the house weighing the bird and he baited off the glove and came back. And all of a sudden I had two heads. Like he hated me forever after that. So I gave him to my buddy and it was fine, like with him. I have a goshawk that I flew for 4 seasons that went through dispersal and absolutely hated his original falconer, just phobic. Like I saw a video of the bird spinning upside down and screaming out of fear. I've never seen anything like it. And I felt bad for the bird. I'm like, and I think I had just released a bird and I was without a bird. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And I had to do a lot of work because it was fearful. I had to do a lot of operant conditioning and it was just a mess. But that being said, I went on to catch a lot of game with that bird and had a great relationship with that bird over the years because I wasn't him. And I remember one time, my bird saw him in the weathering yard at a meet and completely went ballistic. Like he hated that person. So like to avoid like that crazy dispersal, and any kind of like crazy aggression, I don't think it's a bad idea to have, if you have someone you trust that doesn't look like you at all, to raise, like you could raise each other's bird. I know that Jeremy Bradshaw and a buddy of his did that one year because they wanted to avoid that dispersal and any kind of aggression. And they looked dissimilar and they traded birds, I think a little bit after hard pinning, and they went out. It was like having a chamber raised bird. I kind of luck out a lot because I don't look like most goshawkers. So someone, someone can just, have a hard time with a bird and I'll get it and like, hi, how are you? And the same thing, like I raised a goss, my friend made a goss last year. I hatched it out for him, reared it. And I do all the, incubation and hand rearing for his project. And so, I hatched it out for him. And I reared it for 30 days, used my method, took it around everywhere like this. And then he got it, just right, he wasn't hard pinned, but just like an older brancher. And that bird's just amazing with him, just sweet as pie, because he don't look like me at all. And he hoods and just a great bird. There's something to it, open mind. There's something to it. I wouldn't, though, about the whole leaving in the chamber thing. I have done a hybrid of that. I raised a East Ural Siberian albitus cross female for the future breeding project. So, and I did the whole methods that I do, and I did the lure machine work for her up until October, and I put her up and in October in the chamber and fed her down the food chute. And then I gave her to a friend of mine because he was without a bird, and the bird was going to need a few years to mature anyway. So I said, okay, I'll loan it to a bird. And he took that bird out and started catching jackrabbits with it, and it didn't have any issues. And, well, if she got too low, she definitely would get mad. I mean, she's not perfect, but as long as she was up at the higher weights, she was great with him. So, I mean, it was like a hybrid method. The bird had not caught any game. No game at all, just the lure machine. And then I put the bird up, but the bird learned how to chase, learned how to work for her food. The first jackrabbit she ever saw, she caught. So I don't know, something to be said about that.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, and I know every bird's different. Every situation's different. But who knows?
I don't like I'm not worried about anything other than the risk of it becoming lazy.
Yeah.
Because the Goshawks in the breeding chambers, my buddy, they're great. They're easygoing, they're mellow because they're heavy and they're fine. And I've taken those birds out, but they all were game hawks. So that's the difference. They all caught lots of game before they were put up in chambers. So, but they still were able to come out, and fly. But I don't think I'd ever purposely put a bird up without ever hunting it first. Just because I just would worry about them being lazy.
Well, I mean, overall, I think that's still the general consensus.
Yeah.
With my buddies too. But anyway, well, that's cool. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on and on.
Of course,
sure, for forever. But I mean, we're I think at a good point where it's probably a good idea to go ahead and get your favorite memory, hunting story, experience with the bird, whatever you choose, and then end with our piece of advice, and then go ahead and call this particular recording good. And
of course, yeah.
So,
I've had a lot, so I've been around for a little spell, but I think one of my favorite hunts was I was in Arizona with a friend of mine, and I had my male goshawk, and we happened to hit a patch of bunnies that there were a lot of bunnies in the patch. And so we got out there at first light, and just, one bunny after the other flushed, and my bird just scooped every single one. And I caught 5 bunnies in 10 minutes before the sun came up. And these weren't like pipe bunnies. These weren't like, no, these birds were, these bunnies were like in the wild field, in the bushes, and they actually ran pretty far. And my bird just pounded out. He was just in prime. It was 30 degrees. He just went, bam, just one after another. And that, for me, it was, I don't know. I've had a lot of great hunts and flights and lots of things, but I guess, again, it's so personal, and I don't know about you, but I just like to set little goals for myself or do different things. And to catch 5 bunnies in 10 minutes before the sun came up in a wild setting was really cool. I just, that was fun. 'Cause that's like my best. Now I've caught a lot more game than that in a hunt, but that was my best time. My best game flush, the game caught to the time. So, I was by the car with my bunnies in hand, and the sun hadn't even come up yet. I'm like, yeah, that was a fun hunt.
That's a good day. That's a good day. I mean, and it's kind of hard to beat that time too, just by default.
I won't do that again, not unless I move somewhere, because after the rabbit virus, we just don't have the bunnies. So.
Well, I don't think very many people, no matter what, nowadays are going to be able to do anything like that hardly at all anymore. You get your rare exceptions. There's always exceptions to the rule, but yeah, I think that's definitely the more in the unicorn realm.
Yes.
More. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was definitely a unicorn day.
Very nice. Cool. Well, I mean, I guess we can go ahead and get your piece of advice, and then go ahead and part ways for the day. But yeah, I mean.
You know what? Because I talk with a lot of people about accipiters. I think I'll talk. My piece of advice will be towards accipiters, is to find a local mentor in your area. I will always enjoy helping people, but I don't live where you do. My circumstances aren't yours, and my game isn't yours. My terrain isn't yours. So I only can help anybody so far. I could do basic stuff. But when it comes to entering and game hawking, you got to find people who've done it, and they're doing it well. You're going to look at someone who catches a lot of game very consistently throughout the season and keeps their birds alive for many years. That molts them out. Because this is something to take away. Any one of us can drop weight on an accipiter and catch a lot of game with it. But we also have to be able to keep that bird healthy while doing it. And unfortunately, a lot of birds of prey will get strung out. A lot of goshawks especially will get strung out because they were kept low for too long. And then the first little illness that comes around, they succumb to it. So it takes quite a bit of finesse for the goshawkers and other folks like that who can fly their birds, catch game with them, and have them for years to come. Those are the people you want to reach out to. They're probably going to be reclusive, because most people are who fly accipiters. They might not want to. It's kind of like a sponsorship, really. Every new species requires a sponsor, in my opinion. And but yes, find those people, reach out to them. Be friendly, be kind, and and listen to everything they say. Because what they do works for their area. They are experienced. They know what they're doing. You may not like it. You might not agree with it, but look what they're doing. Man, they're doing good. So that's what I say. Find your local mentor. Listen to them. Respect them. Respect what they have to say. They've been doing this a while. And that's my final piece of advice.
Nice. Yeah. And try your best not to be an asshole.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, ask opinion and advice, and then just do whatever the opposite is, or whatever you want anyway. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, awesome. I mean, thanks so much for carving out the time to do this. And I know we're probably both bummed about not being able to be at the that Arizona meet.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. But yeah, I hate it whenever plans, and especially when it comes to just unfortunate series of events,
Yep.
I hate it whenever stuff falls through. But I thanks for joining me on here though anyway, and go ahead and have you stay on for just a little bit until the files upload and stuff on this. But hopefully we'll get a chance to sometime down the road meet in person.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, shoot the shit a little bit, and we'll hopefully have a fun time. I know this was a lot of fun though. I mean, I appreciate the conversation and just the transparency and stuff. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.